World Underneath 22 Bucket List. Chapter 1 An Atypical Lemurian. Few will notice Aiden among the students at Verona Middle School. After all, he's ordinary to the extreme. Mediocre grades, average looks, and a personality that could be called introverted. In short, he blends in seamlessly among the human students. Of course, certain moments are an exception. Aiden looks up from the desert photo album he's holding. A row of faces is crowded around him. Suddenly, he feels like his tongue is in a twist. Me? Are you talking about me? The club performance they've been preparing for all semester is just around the corner. But the student who's supposed to read the song is in the hospital with a stomach bug. Frantic, the teacher tries to come up with an idea that he thinks is brilliant. Everyone knows Aiden's family are musicians. His family runs the music store on Central Street. I heard his dad playing piano and singing when I walked past the store. His grandpa's humming sounds amazing too. Wow, that means he's been learning through examples since he was little. Aiden's singing must be better than most. Before Aiden can speak, he's swept up by the crowd and hustled backstage with an energy he's never seen before. We're counting on you. The microphone lands in his hands after 3 tries. The stage lights haven't even turned on yet, but Aiden's face is already red. His family does run a music store. His father and mother are skilled with many instruments, and his grandfather does enjoy humming a few tunes while repairing instruments. But he's tone deaf. I know, this is, what do you call it? Rap! I don't think so. Slam poetry would be more accurate. But we need him to sing. Aiden wants to tell them that he isn't human and not like them. But once he thinks about it, his statement isn't really accurate. He doesn't seem like a Lemurian either. He's a disaster in the world of art. His swimming can only be called not drowning, and he's half human. This is Aiden's secret. Over a decade ago, when Lemuria suffered from a great catastrophe, an adventurous human girl saved his grandfather and father. Later on, she became his grandfather's daughter-in-law, his father's wife, and eventually Aiden's mother. They say the greater the genetic distance, the stronger the advantages of species diversity. But in Aiden's case, he seems like he got some genetic bug that activated recessive genes. Aiden has no artistic talent and no courage to see life as an open wilderness. This gradually became a grievance that exists only in Aiden's heart. It slowly evolved into a small instance of rebellion. I don't care that I'm unlike other Lemurians. Instead of heading to music class as he should, he stands before a holographic banner that reads, Desert Life, Ariadum. He imagines the sensation of his feet sinking into quicksand. This is another one of Aiden's secrets. As a half Lemurian who has to soak in the bathtub mostly every day, he has always had a desire to see the desert. Maybe it's out of curiosity, or maybe it's because the desert, like the ocean depths his father spoke of, is a place strange and distant to him. And compared to swimming, he always preferred building sand sculptures on the beach. Aiden looks down at his restless toes. But he still decides to go to tutoring. Adventurous spirit? What's that? It doesn't exist. His relationship with the desert lecture is a tragic story of a fish falling in love with a bird, or a rebellious tale of a fish leaving the sea. There's no good ending either way. As he turns around, he spots a familiar figure at the entrance of the classroom. Grandfather? He tries to come up with a reason for why he'd be here. Aiden figures grandfather wants to catch him skipping class. Aiden immediately turns to leave, but he hasn't taken more than a few steps before he's pulled back. Grandfather? I'll go to class now. His grandfather, who had always been steadfast and composed, pulls him into the classroom. Aiden has no idea what he'll say next. Don't tell your dad. He doesn't know I snuck out. Chapter 2 1. Learn about the desert. Unlike Aiden, his grandfather is a striking old man who stands out among humans and Lemurians. In Lemuria, he's renowned far and wide in the underwater singing circles for his exceptionally outstanding voice. After the catastrophe, some chose to live as hermits, and others lived in hatred. But Grandfather chose to hide his brilliance and disappear into the crowd of humanity. He just wants to survive. He dutifully runs a music store. When his son chose that brave human girl, he only wanted his son to be happy. After Aiden became old enough to understand the world, Grandfather taught him that the first rule of survival on land is vigilance. As he slowly approaches the end of his life, he should be peacefully living in his final days, while resting in a bed as per the doctor's orders. Here he is, having snuck out again against medical advice. Grandfather pulls him to a seat. Aiden fidgets, as if two sea urchins are under him, and turns to look at the old man. He's staring at the podium and listening. He shows no feelings of guilt for sneaking out. In today's lesson, we'll mainly be discussing the mindsets of Arduits, and Dulo, and Julian. More often than not, they would sing these words. Grandfather hums along with the lyrics. Then he immediately leans toward Aiden. What do they mean? Adventure and freedom. She explained it twice already. Ah, yes. I'm getting old. It's normal for me to be forgetful. Does anyone remember what these lyrics mean? The teacher at the podium asks. Before Aiden can react, his grandfather suddenly shoots up like a fish and instantly catches the attention of the entire classroom. Everyone waits for this confident old man to answer, but the air grows thick with silence. After a few seconds of blankly staring, his grandfather leans toward Aiden again. What was it again? Of course. Having expected grandfather's forgetfulness, Aiden slips him the answer. Then, with a voice that's energetic and earnest, his grandfather brings the vast, distant desert into the classroom. Watching his grandfather acknowledge the audience, Aiden feels as if he's meeting him for the first time. Setting aside the fact that he should never have ignored the doctor's orders, left the bathtub, and snuck out of the house, whenever he had to attend public gatherings in the past, he would always repeatedly remind Aiden to not draw attention and only do what you're supposed to do. It's the complete opposite of what he's doing right now. Leaving the classroom, Aiden prepares a list of questions, but all of them are answered by two words. Bucket list? Grandfather mysteriously pulls a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. It looks like it's been folded and unfolded countless times. The words at the top of the page are strikingly standing out. These are all the things I've wanted to do, but I never got the chance. I can't wait any longer. As if to prove the lecture's message about adventure and freedom, his grandfather prepares to run away from home at the end of his life. Bucket list. 1. Learn about the desert. Done. A long time ago, when I was your age, I wanted to explore the desert. His grandfather leans in. I heard Ariduts are incredibly brave. They even treat their gods like a dish to be served. The doctor said you need to spend at least 20 hours a day soaking in the bathtub. Why should I rush? There will be plenty of time to sleep in the ocean after the sea moon's ceremony. Mom and Dad will worry. I already talked to your mother. She'll deal with your father. The only condition is that you have to accompany me. How long will we be gone? When are we coming back? Why are you thinking about going home before we leave? That should be my last wish. Aiden's grandfather walks ahead with his backpack. His steps are as determined as a dream-chasing teenager's. Chapter 3. 2. Go skydiving. All Lemurians are afraid of heights. Even as Aiden says this, Grandfather's face shows no signs of fear. Aren't you curious? What kind of world could we see by jumping down from here? The city outside the cabin door looks like a miniature model. Aiden looks calm, but he quietly gulps. Are you ready? Their instructors are shouting. 3, 2, 1. The moment they leave the helicopter, Aiden's ears ring briefly. His hearing is restored by his grandfather's screaming. The instructor warned them to keep their mouths shut during the jump. The wind is so fast that once you open your mouth, you won't be able to close it for the rest of the fall. But looking at the grandfather, screaming one moment and laughing heartily the next, he seems to have never considered that. Grandfather has always been quiet. He's always sitting behind the store counter and hiding most of his body without saying a word. He walks down the most inconspicuous streets and says nothing. Even when hurried vendors bump into him, he makes himself the most ordinary person among humans. But now, he's the noisiest bird in the sky. Aiden sees him gesture to the instructor. Accompanied by fading laughter, his grandfather suddenly spirals away. Then he spirals back again after a short while. He's like a bird that had just gained ownership of the sky. He eagerly savors the realm he never experienced before. What does it feel like when birds fly? It's just one jump. Aiden grits his teeth and tentatively spreads his arms. He tries to feel the wind like his grandfather. This experience brings him so many sensations that even fear takes a back seat. When his feet touch the solid ground again, Aiden is reluctant to let go. Bucket list. 2. Go skydiving. Done. I've never heard the wind like that before. It's already over, but his grandfather is still holding on to the instructor and chatting away. The wind is so free up there. It has a pitch, melody, and dynamics. You heard it too, right? Aiden feels like grandfather is becoming less like the old Lemurian in his memory. But does it matter? Aiden remembers the pain of sitting through sight singing classes. He never quite grasped the concepts, no matter how hard he listened. He remembers the excitement and anticipation when imagining himself skipping class to attend the desert lectures. He realizes that Lemurians don't have to be a certain way. His grandfather can be a Lemurian, a human, a bird, or even a sea buckthorn standing against the desert wind and possessing another kind of possibility amid roughness and aridity. Aiden sifts through his thoughts and pulls out the word he feels describes his grandfather the best right now. Selfish? Self-centered? Free. His current life experiences isn't enough to understand the true meaning of his word. He knows that birds that possess the sky are free, so creatures that possess the sky are, of course, even more so. Chapter 4. 3. Go to Audome. At the final stop of their journey, they arrive at an expanse of yellow sand, and naturally, their first stop is a local restaurant. In a crowded rest stop amid the Audome's yellow sands, an old man, a child, and a man sit around the table. They're carrying bags and packs of various sizes. But Aiden and his grandfather don't know the Audome locals sharing their table. It's just that the restaurant is full, and by the time they realize what's happening, the stranger has already put down his backpack. He's sitting across from them. You're not locals? The Audome lowers his head and eats for a while. Then he looks up and gives the two a quick once-over. Are you runaways too? Two? A lot of people run away from home, either from here or to here. Whether they're leaving or arriving, they always eat at this place. As they talk, dishes are served one after the other. Aiden suspects this Audome has ordered the entire menu, or he's close to achieving it. Do you want to try some? It's my treat. I'll be leaving soon anyway. A lot of what you ordered are dishes that specifically rip off tourists. This is the real local specialty. Every dish in this restaurant has a story. The Audome introduces them one by one. Like this, and like this. The dish here is called the deity's temptation. It has the longest history. It's the last dish our god ate before running away. Aiden's mind spins as he barely manages to follow what the Audome's saying. Now he's even more confused. Your god ran away? I heard about it from my great-great-grandfather. They used to worship the man who led them to survive in the desert. They made him their god, until one day he ran away. The Audome winks mysteriously. And then they worshipped him even more. He was brave. That's why we have so many people who are inspired to leave the desert and pursue their own goals. After all, it's the desert. When the wind blows, it looks one way today and completely different tomorrow. Their god ran away? Grandfather still looks incredulous as the two of them follow the trail deeper into the desert. He carries the takeout container with the unfinished deity's temptation. Grandfather, do you think their god was also getting old? So he made a bucket list and ran away to fulfill it? That makes sense. His grandfather murmurs. He was born in the desert, yearned for the world beyond, and had to bear its so many responsibilities throughout his life. But in his final days, he decided to go be true to himself. Aiden thinks this is similar to his grandfather's story. Dad said that when grandfather was young, he ran away to the surface world because he was curious and yearned for the unknown. However, after that disaster, survivors had no choice but to reclaim their Lemurian identity. For the sake of their family's survival, they had to maintain a certain dignity and vigilance. It was difficult to be true to themselves. It's possible that in the moments of his life, grandfather is determined to fulfill his small desires and create a beautiful ending to his life's story. His bucket list would probably be the opposite of mine. For example, it would include having a seafood feast. Aiden thinks for a moment. Would he want to see the legendary Lemurians? His grandfather adds, swimming. There would be something about swimming in the world's largest pool. What's the largest pool? I've never been there. It's our home, Lemuria, the sea. The two of them speculate about this god's thoughts. Compared to a real god, Aiden thinks the Aridom's god, in his people's eyes, is more like a person who's also a freer. Aiden also thinks about the Lemurian sea god. But instead of calling him the sea god or his quintessence, Aiden prefers to call him Raphael. Grandfather, will the sea god have a bucket list too? His quintessence has a very, very long lifespan. Think of him as basically being immortal. Aiden understood. At the end of his journey, Aiden isn't happy after learning that the sea god is immortal. His feelings become more complicated. If the sea god doesn't die, wouldn't that mean that he'll never have a bucket list? And so he'll never have the opportunity to be himself like the Aridom god and his grandfather? Chapter 5. 52 Hertz. This is Aiden's first time attending the sea moon ceremony. In the middle of the night, the distant sea and the sky blend into one blue expanse. When the moon reaches the highest point in the sky, he watches as his people guide his grandfather towards the deep sea. The sea god stands at the very front, his back to his people, his head slightly turned. He sings softly amid the sound of waves. Between the rise and fall of the melody, Raphael weaves the transitions between minor and major keys perfectly. There isn't a lot of sadness, and a bit of freedom is present. He sings perfectly for Aiden's grandfather, who finally became himself in the end. They say a song is forged by the composer and the performer. This is his grandfather's final work, a song about being himself. The composer already told his story. But what about the performer? Immortality, overwhelming strength. Aiden heard that the sea god is strong. He can lead the Lemurians back to Lemuria. But in his eyes, he's just a man who loves to paint, excels in many art forms, and is interesting and fun to be around. He's not ordinary, yet he's not that different. He could be like his grandfather. He can laugh freely and choose to become a Lemurian, a human, a bird, or even a sea buckthorn in the desert. He can give his desires to that most important blue. The song flows beautifully, but Aiden cannot see the singer's expression. Aiden hopes that one day he'll have more stories about himself, not just as the sea god, but also as Raphael. World Underneath, 23. Beyond Survival. Chapter 1. Art of Survival. After spending years on Earth, Myers still hasn't shaken a certain habit. Whenever the doorbell rings, his muscles tense and he slips into battle readiness. As an astral enforcer, he learned that a bell usually means trouble, a warning before things go sideways. It could mean that you need to perform an emergency warp to dodge cosmic radiation, or your warp coordinates suddenly shift, and you'll be flung into uncharted space. Sometimes it means the number one fugitive on his list, Silas, shows up in exactly the wrong stretch of galaxy. When the criminal who had vanished for a long time appeared, almost within reach, Meyer didn't hesitate. He followed Silas into Earth, a place where a bell can mean more than just danger. Restarting data protocol. Please wait. Meyer puts the repaired power core back into the mechanical Sential's eye socket. These machines, custom built to hunt Silas, stand silent beside his workbench. Ever since the failed ambush in the N109 zone, he's been studying ways to enhance their capabilities. The doorbell continues to ring as Meyer draws the curtain to conceal everything. Through the peephole, he spots a familiar face. Mr. Lopez. Male. 48. Lives alone. He's the owner of the hardware store down the street. The shop opens at 9:10 a.m., Monday through Thursday. He visits the climbing gym across the street at 8 p.m., Friday through Sunday. His climbing skills remain at the beginner level, but he spends at least 15 minutes chatting with the climber gym's female owner. Statistical analyst shows at a 66.7% chance he ends the conversation with a good night, and a 33.3% chance of see you tomorrow. He lives next door. Earthlings would say he and Mr. Lopez are neighbors. On Philos, Meyer never met his neighbors. People kept their distance and avoided close relationships with anyone. This even applied to blood relatives. On his first day as an astral enforcer, he was taught that desire and emotions are primitive human flaws that only hinder Philos' new humans from advancing. So when it comes to someone stopping by for no apparent reason, Meyer has already drawn his conclusion. This Earthling is acting abnormally, and he must have an ulterior motive for approaching him. A colleague? A rival? Or one of Silas's underlings? Perhaps the climbing gym around the corner served as an intel exchange location. Either way, he's nothing but trouble. With 3 security chains on the door, Meyer conceals a pocket pistol behind his back and slightly opens the door. Hey, Meyer. Sorry to bother you again. Furrowed brows, fidgeting hands. Meyer has thoroughly internalized an Earthling's behavior analysis manual. He quickly assesses the neighbor's psychological state. 3 parts nervousness, 3 parts awkwardness, and 3 parts ulterior motives. As for the remaining part, noticing that peculiar pink flush creeping up from his neighbor's ears, Meyer frowns. This Earthling has never shown signs of shyness in front of him before. His neighbor mumbles, "Excuse me," and then he holds up a heart-shaped LED sign. "There's a small problem with this thing, and I can't find my reading glasses. I was wondering if you could fix it." Staring at the flickering LOV and the dim E on the sign, Meyer quickly lists possible uses for this LED sign. Given how simple his neighbor's daily routine is and how he knows very few people, there can only be one possibility. "You want to give this to someone at the climbing gym?" The neighbor clutches the door frame as the redness from his ears spread across his face. Chapter 2. Passion and Desire. After removing the E from the sign, Meyer determines that some of the LED bulbs have short-circuited. Her birthday is next Saturday. I plan to order a cake in advance and then take this sign to the gym to meet her. His neighbor rambles on about his confession plans. "I'm not exaggerating, but she's the most beautiful person at the gym. Whenever I go, I spot her immediately. She has more energy than everyone else." While focusing on replacing the LED bulbs, Meyer spares a thought for the woman his neighbor keeps mentioning. Female, 53, lives alone. She's the owner of the climbing gym around the corner. Significantly older than 99% of the gym members, yet possesses superior physical fitness. The only person at the gym who can complete a V10 climbing route. No, I can't order a cake. The neighbor suddenly shakes his head. She's cutting back on sugar lately. It's 30% gym, 70% diet. Maybe I should make her a beef tartare instead. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. He nods, only to shake his head again moments later. I'm still hesitant about going. She has a great personality with so many friends. I'm just one of the most ordinary among them. Seemingly dissatisfied with himself, he looks a little dejected. Meyer, do you think she'll accept my feelings? The room falls silent. On Earth, a confession might mark the beginning of a relationship or toll the death knell for a crush. The very concept is interwoven with countless stories, but in the harsh Philosian laws, these sorts of confessions are explicitly prohibited. Crushes, admiration, and romantic love are condemned as grave sins, and jurisprudence is cold and absolute. Emotions are poisonous seeds of desire. Once they germinate, they allow the flaws buried deep within one's genes to corrode the soul's purity and ignite the fires of chaos. They're just like the most dangerous interstellar fugitive, Silas, the man Meyer has spent his entire life hunting. Meyer offers no answer because discussing such matters can send him into a space-time prison. He'll end up as an astral enforcer who was promoted to a temporal inmate. It's fixed. That was quick. His neighbor immediately steps forward and turns on the sign. The 4 letters flash in alternating garnished light. Great! I'm sure she'll be happy to see this. When she encourages those young people worn down by the daily grind, she holds up a sign that says, "Once more, with feeling." Meyer thinks the climbing gym owner will smile just from seeing his neighbor show up. Objectively speaking, anyway. Thanks, Meyer. However, just as Meyer is about to usher him out, his neighbor clings to the door frame. By the way, I notice how you're always by yourself. Wouldn't you like some Before his neighbor can finish, Meyer hastily says goodbye and closes the door. Compared to his useless emotional entanglements, he has more important matters to attend to as an astral enforcer. Back behind the curtain, Meyer tests the masked Sentinel's power core once more. With a final low hum, these weapons, designed specifically to counter Silas, enter combat mode. 3 days ago, Meyer learned that Silas is planning a major operation next week. The rumors were wildly exaggerated. There was talks of strikes and taking all 4 in one go. Whatever it is, it appears he was heading into Lincoln City for something monumental. After working around the clock for 3 days, Meyer upgraded the power cores of his weapons. Now, they await the opportunity to face Silas once again. At present, Meyer sits at his workbench, pen in hand. He analyzes the possible motives behind Silas's actions. 1. Hunting Day's new round at the nest. 2. The Hunters Association's recent movements. Speaking of the Hunter Association, Meyer recalls an ambush at the N109 zone. Back then, there was a girl beside Silas. Someone Meyer spotted near the Hunters Association. Meyer narrows his eyes. After another round of rigorous analysis, he crosses out the newly written item on his list. 3. That girl. After all, Silas is a fiend who constantly plots strikes and moves that can take all 4 in one go. Even if it involves her, it's just another one of Silas's strategies to achieve his goals. Chapter 3. Insight. 1 week later, at the border between the N109 zone and Lincoln's Imperial Ring District, a motorcycle speeds past. Dark figures crouching in the bushes silently transform into shadows trailing behind him. Meanwhile, Meyer sits in a cafe and monitors everything remotely. The Nest, the Hunters Association. He already positions surveillance devices at every possible designation Silas might visit. This ensures he can get intercepted no matter where he goes. However, he watches Silas make an unexpected detour at a beverage shop. Is this to throw off any surveillance? Meyer continues to stare at the screen. 5 minutes later, Silas emerges with 2 cups of milk tea. Was he just thirsty? But why 2 drinks? Perhaps he's heading to an intel exchange location first? Meyer watches as Silas stops in front of a vintage vinyl record store. A quarter of an hour later, he walks out with an elegantly packaged box containing a record. Records? It seems to be an ancient medium that Earthlings use to store music. Meyer has reached a conclusion. This must be a new intel exchange location. After all, the record store, in its strategic position as it sits on the border between the N109 zone and Lincoln City, is ideal for recruiting new fractions from its gray zone. Just as he's getting a clear view of the record Silas is holding, the target suddenly stops beside his motorcycle. Meyer's breath stops for a second as Silas's eye makes contact with him. 3 seconds later, Silas looks away. Continuing his silent observation, Meyer's palms are already clammy. Silas didn't do anything, but what was that about? Has he been compromised? Silas starts his motorcycle while a masked sentinel is surrounded by curious pedestrians. It paces back and forth, trying to leave the crowd, but the onlookers are more curious. Hey, these mechanical components are intricate. Look at the joint movements and bionic structure. I heard Ever was about to release new generation of caretaker AI. Is this it? Cyber elder care is a win for everyone. That face needs a redo though. It's too dark and gives me the creeps. Meyer's head starts to hurt. Exploratory desires and curiosity, emotions equally forbidden in Phylos, are now allowing him to truly understand their detrimental effects. They obstruct objectives and desecrate order. Although using suppression tactics against civilians doesn't align with his usual approach, it's a necessary price to pay for hunting Silas right now. Clear the area. Meyer issues the command without any hesitation. 3 seconds. 30 seconds. 3 minutes. Nothing happens except for the remote surveillance feed going black. As the crowd disperses, sweat forms on Meyer's temples. He hurriedly activates the backup power supply, restores the real-time surveillance feed to assess the situation, and checks on the power core. But it's too late. Staring at the motionless masked sentinel, Meyer grits his teeth. The power core's component module was destroyed 3 minutes and 5 seconds ago. After convulsing briefly, the sentinel collapsed to the ground. Whoa, it dances? Why is it lying down now? Oh, it's broken. Boring. Let's go. Through gaps in the dispersing crowd, Meyer spots a motorcycle heading towards Lincoln Tower. A black crow circles overhead and lets out a shrill caw in Meyer's direction. Then the bird departs with its master. Meyer slams his coffee cup on the table and follows them. Chapter 4. Earth-Shattering Crisis. Inside the mall, parents carry their children, friends walk side by side, and everyone moves casually. Their gaze never lingers on strangers for more than a second. Meyer begins to doubt himself. Where was the transaction? The armed confrontation? Has Silas spotted him and changed designations in the last minute? Then he catches sight of that figure again at the escalator. After checking the arsenal stuffed in his pockets countless times, Meyer cautiously follows. Hugging the wall, he arrives at his destination. The entrance of Twinkle Toys, limited-time pop-up store. 10 meters away, Meyer finally detects vigilance and seriousness on Silas's face. Except it's directed at a claw machine. The hunter girl stands beside him. She's not wearing her black sleek uniform today. Instead, she's hugging a fluffy sunny dino while staring intently at the claw machine in front of her. The girl says something to Silas. He responds with a slight smile before bending down to insert a token into the claw machine. The lights flash as the machinery charges. Silas grips the joystick, moves the claw, and presses the button in one fluid motion. He gets nothing. Another token goes into the claw machine. Meyer notices the thin wisps of black-red mist swirling around the claw. That's Silas's evol, which is powerful enough to devastate an entire planet. When he sees his evol being used, Meyer reaches for the weapon in his pocket. But the most dramatic thing that happens next is the plushie falling as the claw moves. It's followed by the claw machine emitting a sound effect to signify failure. After a third unsuccessful attempt, Meyer catches a glimpse of something small and fleeting on Silas's face. A flash of defiance and heartbreak. An earth-shaking revelation strikes him. If his colleagues find out that this fugitive, legendary for committing atrocities without batting an eye, can make such an expression at a claw machine on Earth, who knows how many more interstellar horror stories beginning with Silas would proliferate. Meyer watches as the girl gives Silas a playful poke. She's seemingly gloating about the rare plushie she clawed out earlier. Silas says nothing. He lowers his gaze, raises his hand, and gently flicks her forehead. Meyer recognizes an emotion on their face. It's the same one he saw on the neighbor's face during his weekend visits to the climbing gym. So the strikes in the intel are actually about a pop-up store? Taking all 4 in one go meant getting 4 different colored plushies? And the major operation is actually a date. Meyer remains confused. The colorful plushie lies inside the claw machine, and they seemingly mock Meyer and all his preparations. He pulled out all the stops to counter this fugitive's evil, and his target used his evil on a mall's claw machine? The girl goes to the counter to buy more tokens. Meanwhile, Meyer feels the intense sensation of being watched. He sees Silas stroll over to his hiding place. In his left hand, he carries 2 unfinished cups of milk tea, while his right hand reaches towards his pants pocket. Of course, everything had been part of Silas's disguise. Now he's finally revealing his true intentions. Stepping back, Meyer quickly adopts a defiant stance, his mind running through countless possibilities of what weapon Silas might pull out. As beads of sweat form on his temples, he feels a mixture of thrill and trepidation unlike anything he's experienced before. Unlike the red dot marked on Silas on the interstellar map and the figure seen through monitor, this is a face-to-face showdown. 10 meters. 5 meters. 3 meters. Silas pulls out a coin. Silas holds the coin between 2 fingers. Silas tosses the coin. A microbomb disguised as a coin? A regional mind control device? Or is it a listening device? Meyer ducks and rolls. But before he can congratulate himself on dodging the attack, something hits his right knee. Pain and numbness shoot through him. He's forced to fall to his knee. The culprit is a token bearing the Twinkle Toys logo. It spins on the ground. To be exact, it spins in the spot where he once stood. It's untouched by anything else. Frozen in a pose more ridiculous than most plushies, Meyer watches as Silas turns and walks away. He returns to the girl's side. He hasn't said a word throughout the entire encounter, as if he was disturbed by someone insignificant. He just sent a warning. Whoever it was should take the hint and choose another day to visit, or it won't just be a token flying their way. With the masked sentinel no longer by his side, Meyer feels like there is no need to continue. Silas's schedule today revolved around a single concept: a date. The banner with "Big News" at the dessert counter catches his eye. In the past, Meyer would have scoffed. How could this possibly count as big news? Physical pleasures are more trivial than the speck of dust. But now, his mind is blank. This fruitless pursuit finally made Meyer realize something. He never truly understood Earth. Where to eat, what to wear, what games to play are considered mattered of great importance. Naturally, he also never understood Silas, the man who chose to become a fiend while destroying and leaving Philos behind. He rejected everything it stood for. Chapter 5. Way of Life. After giving up the pursuit, Meyer returns to the record store and purchases the same vinyl record as Silas. He hopes to gain new intel about Silas from it. By becoming more familiar with his opponent, he'll gain an advantage for his next operation. However, once the record is brought home, he discovers that the secondhand record player he acquired is broken. The same man who remains composed when facing lethal weapons is at a loss before a turnable that won't spin properly. After repeatedly searching for fixes and failings to find new ones, Meyer finally knocks on his neighbor's door. He vaguely recalls that the man had a record player tucked in the corner of his hardware store. "Oh, it's an easy fix." The neighbor enters Meyer's apartment and begins tinkering with the record player. Looking at the climbing chalk that still lingers on his neighbor's hands, Meyer remembers that the man planned to confess his feelings at the climbing gym yesterday. Did she smile when she saw your light display?" Meyer asks. "Huh? Oh, that." Before he continues, the needle falls and classical music gently fills the air. There's no intel as Meyer had hoped. It's an ordinary record, and the soft melody is unlike anything from Philo's. "I gave her the beef tartare, but I left the sign at home," the neighbor says while patting his somewhat soft limbs. "I'm not quite there yet. At least, I should wait until I can climb V10 with her. That would probably increase my chances. She has a lot of friends, and others look at her with the same gaze as yours. Someone else might confess to her while you wait. If she accepts someone else's confession, it means she likes them too." The neighbor rubs the fabric of his pants and gazes out the window, looking at the street corner. "Isn't that wonderful? When the person you like also feels the same way, that's the best feeling in the world." "You don't want to have her?" "Where did you learn that phrase? It's not about having her. It's about being with her, living with her, and dreaming of a future together. But I want her to be happy, joyful, fulfilled. That's more important." This isn't something Meyer expected. "Loving her made me fall in love with rock climbing," the neighbor says. He's made himself home on Meyer's sofa. "My weight loss is starting to show results, and my high blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol are going down. Falling in love with a wonderful person is beautiful in on itself. As for whether or not we end up together, well, you can't force these things." According to Philos' doctrine, a person in love would be governed by their greed, selfishness, and desires. It'd lead them to possess the other person and take endlessly. They'll forever be trapped in a downward spiral with no escape. How could such a person say something like, "You can't force these things"? Meyer is lost in thought when his neighbor pats his shoulder, and he snaps back to reality. "It's okay. Even if she's not in my future, I can always drag you along as my friend to go rock climbing." The record spins as classical music flows gently throughout the room. After several seconds pass, Meyer finally releases his grip on the pocket pistol in his right hand, switches on the safety, and quietly hides it behind the sofa. Perhaps this is Earth's basic etiquette for treating a friend. When he sets down the gun, Meyer feels something unusual stir within him. Listening to his neighbor, he's struck by a sudden urge to share his own experiences in tracking Silas. This impulse immediately confuses him. It serves no functional purpose. It's completely meaningless, and can even expose his identity. But if he imagines himself as an earthling, perhaps this is what his neighbor called friendship. This desire to share that earthlings possessed. Meyer has finally turned into the same wavelength as earthlings. They don't view possession as love's ultimate goal. They have other interpretations. Being not concerned with outcomes, but with how it makes them better people. In earthlings' eyes, having desires isn't foolish. Being controlled by those desires isn't what led to ruin. Here, some are governed by their desires, others master them, and few treat desire as a spice for their life of finding purpose. They gave a new name to the state of having just enough desires. They call it living, eating, drinking, enjoying life, the everyday necessities of life. These are the things that truly matter to the people on Earth. They have an even more appealing name for these perfectly balanced desires: aspirations. "What's this?" The neighbor rolls over on the sofa. When he pulls out a fluffy plushie from underneath him, His expression cycles through several emotions. Meyer doesn't know how to explain himself because it's a plushie he got with that token the other day. He can't articulate the reason why. Maybe he wanted to check and see if there was something unusual about the plushies Silas obtained, or maybe he had developed an earthling desire to snatch toys from the claw machine. Meyer feels like it's time to study the act of living. Since Silas had chosen Earth, he would need to adopt earthling ways, to know his enemy as well as himself. Listening to the gentle music and having this simple friendship, Meyer experiences the most peaceful rest he's had since arriving on Earth. World Underneath, 24. Crease. Chapter 1. Daily Circle. The notification sounds from Daily Circle are continuous. Gideon stares at his phone and springs up from his chair. I didn't change a single word except the title. How can their reactions be different? Patrick, who's changing into his uniform, nudges Gideon back down with his arm. I told you. The guy in your lower bunk is what brings all the traffic to Daily Circle. 2 days ago, at midnight, Patrick returned from an emergency mission. He held up fresh ingredients in front of Caleb while asking for a late-night meal. Their dorm quickly became a hub. With other boys showing up with bowls in hand, many colleagues from neighboring dorms were drawn in by the aroma. But the chicken wings Patrick brought back weren't enough. Gideon rolled his eyes and told everyone to follow his account. My Heart Soars on Daily Circle. It's the DAA's internal forum. That's where he regularly shares the dorm's secret recipes. Then he politely closed the door. After leaving the final chicken wing bone spotless, Gideon, for the umpteenth time, makes his declaration. I have a feeling this post will go viral. Then he tapped the send button with confidence. 2 days later, he achieved a grand total of 2 replies and 3 likes. I told you, if you change Dormitory Confessions to DAA Heartthrob, your notifications will blow up. Why don't you believe me? Whenever he wanted to look up stuff like making ginger taste good or removing the bitterness from bitter melons, we acted as guinea pigs since we were university students. Do you want clicks or the credit? Faced with Patrick's soul-searching question, Gideon blinks and opens the edit page. If I hesitate for a second, it'd be disrespectful to myself. If I chose the clicks, I might go viral. If I chose the credit, I'll be second place at best compared to him. Send. A chuckle drifts over the nearby lower bunk. Gideon is about to question why he sounded sarcastic, wondering if it's because of the top 3 spots being held by the same person, when notifications start appearing. Huge Pancake Tunnel. I scrolled past this before without really looking, but once I saw DAA Heartthrob, I got excited. I didn't know OP is the DAA Heartthrob's roommate. My heart soars, OP, reply. If you're excited, you can get in some extra training. Midnight Melancholy Keyboard. The DAA Heartthrob posted a new recipe. Check it out. At Happy Morning Mouse, at Afternoon Crazy Screen, at Evening Graphics Card. My heart soars, OP, reply. I'm the one who posted it. Look at the ID. Midnight Melancholy Keyboard. Anomalies in the deep space tunnel are more frequent this year. When we're busy, we can't make it to the dining hall during business hours. Luckily, I followed the DAA's Heartthrob's advice and bought a 4-in-1 multi-cooker that fries, broils, braises, and deep fries. Now I can always have a hot meal. My heart soars, OP, reply. I'm the one who posted the link. Can't carry any more. What caught my attention is that you can actually ask the dining hall for ingredients. I've been going to the East District supermarket to buy frozen stuff this whole time. Great Rock replies, I know, right? Your DAA Heartthrob has high standards for cooking. He won't accept anything but fresh ingredients. I don't know how he does it, but he can charm Weber from the kitchen with just a few words. Can't carry any more replies. Is Weber the bald guy from the East District's dining hall? I want to try it too. My heart soars, OP replies. Let me give you some advice. Don't mention hair around Weber. 21 Carat Star Diamond. A pilot who can't cook isn't a good boyfriend. I'm learning. When I'm on leave next time, I'll show off my skills to my girlfriend. Sword-wielding scholar replies, "We know, get lost. Our DAA heartthrob at Paper Apple is better than you. He's just thinking about his DAA colleagues' stomachs." "My heart soars," OP replies, "but I'm the one thinking about you guys." Pear Apple replies, "I'm mostly thinking about Miss Apple." 21 Carat Star Diamond replies, "The DAA heartthrob has appeared." Sword-wielding scholar replies, "Got it. One has a girlfriend and the other has someone special. Both have precious people at home, unlike the lonely single people like me and OP." "My heart soars," OP replies. "Why are you dragging me into this?" "You don't have anything else to do, Gideon?" Patrick refreshes the comment section in real time. "You're replying to every comment." That's nothing compared to the DAA heartthrob. He only picks the one he wants to reply to." Gideon scoffs, grabbing a pillow from his chair and hurling it towards the bed. The pillow is suspended in mid-air before floating over gently to smack Gideon's face. "Let's go. The award ceremony is about to start." Patrick adjusts his uniform in the mirror, and then he helps straighten the back part of Gideon's collar. Caleb gives sword-wielding scholar a like before unhurriedly sitting up from his bed. There's not even one wrinkle on his clothes. After the ceremony ends, the three walk down from the podium shoulder to shoulder. They're high-spirited amidst thunderous applause. Chapter 2. DAA Heartthrob. Since university, Gideon has watched his buddy, Caleb, rise from class heartthrob to faculty heartthrob to school heartthrob. Now he's become the Deep Space Aviation Administration's heartthrob. Back in school, being called a heartthrob only required an outstandingly handsome face. But that rule doesn't apply at the DAA. Since the deep space tunnel can easily leave people battered beyond recognition, good looks are the most useless thing of all. And everyone at the DAA was once a top graduate from an aerospace academy. When they put on their new uniforms, proud, determined faces are everywhere. Each person believes that they're the bird that can fly the farthest. During their second month on the job, the detection data brought back from patrols showed the strange fluctuation values. Conspiracy theories began surfacing on Daily Circle, and they grew more outlandish with each retelling. Whether spies had infiltrated the DAA or the deep space tunnel was about to collapse, it had the markings of the most significant DAA crisis that people had seen in a decade. The most popular post directly mentioned Paper Apple. It hoped the DAA heartthrob would step forward to provide a comprehensive analysis on the patrol data. With countless replies and endless calls for his response, the DAA heartthrob's silence was deafening. Meanwhile, someone discovered that Paper Apple had started a new thread in the forum section, Plastic Model Enthusiast. He shared his latest PG model acquisition and posted a real-time assembly update. His relaxed attitude was conspicuously obvious. When he finished assembling the left leg of the model, someone finally asked him in the comments about his thoughts on the patrol data. His only reply? Minor issue. The passionate user wasn't pleased. They tried to argue with him using elaborate references and citations that said that he was practically leading the DAA towards irreversible ruin. After going back and forth over 10 posts, Paper Apple finally responded with, "Thanks for bumping the thread." When he finished assembling the right leg of the model, the data returned to normal. DAA issued a mission briefing stating that Caleb had completed the mission perfectly. He brought back a protocore, which was the culprit behind the previous data's anomalies. The Wanderer had been moving through the deep space tunnel while staying close to the back of the aircraft. It was able to control its own energy to blend into the magnetic field, so it was very difficult to detect. The rumors fell apart on their own. Daily Circle's newly crowded spam post king, My Heart Soars, described the mission details more vividly and dramatically. The conclusion ended with a pointed remark. Caleb resolved it in less than 10 minutes, so it wouldn't have led to DAA's decade-defining crisis. A certain user got so angry that they dejectedly sent Paper Apple one final message before deleting their account. "You should thank Caleb." The inappropriate words were automatically censored by the system and replaced with heart icons. This amusing incident spread among colleagues who knew that Caleb was Paper Apple. Everyone started jokingly calling him the DAA heartthrob, which caught on. I figured it out. There are 3 things the newcomers must do. First, they need to install Daily Circle and become an addict like me. At this point, Gideon pauses and puts on the demeanor of a former coach. He shakes his head thoughtfully before saying, after scrolling through the featured posts on the Daily Circle, they need to wonder why the DAA heartthrob is called the DAA heartthrob. What about the third thing? Patrick asks. The Forever Enthusiast Forum members must rush in to explain the whole story and drag Crisis Guy out for another round of roasting. Gideon never gets tired of telling that story, and the atmosphere in the break room lightened considerably thanks to this shared memory. The new mission is extremely dangerous, and the DAA doesn't have enough pilots who are capable of completing it. The pressure distributed amongst them had increased dramatically. A few of them have been working around the clock for several days without sleep or rest. And after this extremely brief respite, they have to take off again. Even Caleb, who recognized as having superhuman endurance, showed faint shadows of fatigue beneath his eyelashes after continuous high-intensity navigation. After livening up the atmosphere, Gideon sits down and pats Caleb on the shoulder. You still holding up? Caleb snaps back to reality, puts away his previous necklace, and smiles brightly. Of course, I still need to go home this weekend. Gideon gives him a thumbs up. At the time, he never would have imagined that Paper Apple's model assembly real-time updates would forever remain on a page showing scattered parts. Chapter 3. Assessment Guide. His phone chimes with Daily Circle's distinctive notification sound. Gideon taps the screen and glances at it. Your post featured DAA Heartthrob's hacks. Hurry. Sign up for Charwood's Deep Space Tunnel Emergency Combat Assessment. Has received a new comment. Thud. Gideon slams the phone face down on the table. Swallowing the dining hall stir-fry is difficult. Patrick, who's sitting across from him, gives him a look. Someone reply to it again? If it gets too bad, delete the post. Out of sight, out of mind. That won't do. Gideon forces himself to smile. This is my best in Daily Circle. It even set a record. If it's gone, it'd be a waste. Patrick says nothing and unlocks his phone to find the post with the unbeatable record for a reply count. Featured. DAA Heartthrob's hacks. Hurry, sign up for Charwood's Deep Space Tunnel Emergency Combat Assessment. My Heart Soars posted it in subsection Daily Progress. Today he's wearing a pink shirt under his uniform jacket. It's the one his wife gave him as an anniversary gift. It represents his mood today, sunny. This is the only chance to get full marks for trainee impressions aside from achieving a perfect score of 90 on the written exam. Trust me. The post originated from Usual Dorm Chat. The mid-year assessment for the first year DAA's recruits is a nightmarish hurdle that strikes fear into everyone's hearts. Passing the evaluation undoubtedly requires extremely solid technical skills and professional competency. And Charwood has incredibly strict requirements for pilots' personal conduct and flying habits. Even with expertise, scoring above 90 is still wishful thinking. But Gideon made a casual remark. There has to be some kind of trick to it, right? He rolled up the DAA test papers into a makeshift microphone and pointed it at Caleb. Say something, pretty boy with a perfect score. Caleb was concentrating on painting his model and didn't even look up. Technical skills are what really matter. Gideon shrugged. An hour later, the first exam strategy post appeared in the Daily Circle's featured section, starting with the main post's seemingly ridiculous pink shirt rumors. The comic section began packed with valuable intel. For direct advice, it cut to the chase and shared encrypted study packets, which rescued people from desperate situations. As for the more subtle hints, it figured out that different instructors grading preferences and discreetly offered the most appealing solutions. At any new developments about the DAA's assessments could be uncovered here, and it remained relevant year after year. Someone even tagged Charwood in the post. Everyone thought he'd ask for it to be deleted, but unexpectedly, his reply revealed a hint of pride between the lines. No one understands DAA more thoroughly than he does. Charwood's reply was pinned by the administrator, and under his response, Patrick sees the latest comment that made Gideon's phone buzz. Charwood retired. When will the DAA heartthrob update his guide? At Paper Apple. Chapter 4. Drifting Away. Did everyone get recommended this article? Solitude posted in subsection, Horizons Embrace. Link, the truth behind the Far Space Fleet's reform. At first glance, it seems to clear up our relationship with the Far Space Fleet, but upon getting a closer look, it sort of has that vibe of tearing down one to build up another. What's with the comment about the Far Space Fleet reaching a deep space tunnel depth that exceeds the DAA's? And it possesses stronger cruising and combat capabilities? So close, so beautiful, replies. I won't comment on the latter half. We haven't talked to any Far Space Fleet personnel, but the first half is true. Deep Space in My Heart replies, You're siding with the outsiders? So close, so beautiful, replies. You can't judge everything based on the depths they reached. We have different philosophies. DAA's most important duty will always be to protect the land beneath the sky, not to advance without any principles. Echo replies, I was confused as soon as I opened this thread. Isn't this section supposed to be about casual chat? Southern Clouds replies, People are free to discuss whatever they want. Doesn't DAA promote openness and freedom? There's nothing wrong with chatting about the Far Space Fleet. Momo replies, How could anyone from DAA put on a friendly face towards them? There are tons of citizens who don't understand what's going on. They think the city-wide restrictions and protocol cleanup operations are our doing. No meaningless socializing replies, We could never pull that off. We fly a little too far, and the control tower starts issuing warnings. Confrontation Winner replies, True, we can never pull that off. Soon, their detection depth and research progress will leave us in the dust. Protocore technology is trending lately. Strictly following traditions will only make us fall behind. Echo replies, Leave this thread and take another look at the forum, or recite the oath you took when you joined the DAA. Face deep space with reverence and look back at Earth with responsibility to protect and hold reverence for the universe. Have you forgotten it? Too Lazy to Reply replies, This article mentioned it too. The Far Space Fleet's newly appointed colonel is mysterious. No one knows his background. Those disturbances in Skyhaven recently were his doing, right? I wonder what his attitude towards the DAA will be. Riot replies, What more do we need to know? Since he joined the Far Space Fleet, it proves one thing. He has no reverence for deep space and no attachment to Earth. That's why you turned down Far Space Fleet's offer? Because of your attachment to Earth? Pretty much. My most admired senior from university worked here after graduation. They say his go-to excuse for turning down unnecessary social gatherings was always needing to sit down at dinner at home. I trust someone who values family that much. Hey, who is it? Did you see him at today's oath ceremony? No, he was probably out on a mission. I'm several years behind him in school, and he doesn't even know me. During his days at the Aerospace Academy, everyone would run over to watch wherever it was his turn for the test flights. Talk about beautiful flying. Clear, bright voices of 3 newcomers drift from the auditorium as they discuss their motivations for joining the DAA. Gideon and Patrick happen to pass by, and the young recruits immediately straighten their postures, pull their shoulders back, and respectfully salute. Gideon, sir. Patrick, sir. The 2 nod, and the 3 recruits walk away for a while before relaxing and laughing. They wrap their arms around each other. Patrick squints as he watches their retreating figures. When he looks back at the platform where he once stood together with Gideon and Caleb, if he were still here, one of us could have been an instructor. Would we have to wait this long then? Gideon's quick response catches Patrick off guard. You've already made peace with it over the weekend? Gideon recalls the day that has come and gone. After saying goodbye to that girl, he and Caleb fell into an unspoken silence while sitting on the column express back to Skyhaven. It's as if their previous friendliness and laughter in front of her had been an act of reassurance. Caleb still looked the same, yet he somehow felt like a stranger to Gideon. He had so many words bottled up that he wanted to express, but when the train passed by the sunset, shadows fell on Caleb. In the end, Gideon couldn't say anything. Yeah, I've made peace with it. Gideon has taken one step out of the auditorium and sunlight falls on him. I never thought the three of us would split up. Looking back now, the fact that he walked this far with us is a real surprise. Chapter 5. Different Horizons. This patrol follows standard protocol. Probe the shallow deep space tunnel layers and report back on the latest terrestrial magnetic field conditions. After giving the team one final rundown of their mission objectives, Gideon notices a junior colleague in the corner. He barely made it through his probationary period, and his nervousness is still written all over his face. He grins and reassuringly pats his colleague's shoulder. It gets easier after a few missions. We've all been there. The junior nods. Whether from excessive nerves or something else, he begins positioning his limbs at specific angles in series of strange poses. What are you doing? What kind of technique is that? Gideon's face scrunches up, his bewilderment evident. These are some of the most common model poses from the DAA Heartthrob's posts. They say that doing them before a mission gets you protective blessings. Gideon is about to say something when the overhead announcement reminds them that it's time to depart. With an unreadable smile, he mimics the junior's pose. The team bursts into laughter, and their steps are noticeably lighter as they head out. At the entrance of the deep space tunnel, the DAA's patrol briefly crosses path with the far space fleet as they glide through their respective airspaces. Gideon navigates with his trainer aircraft, his gaze fixed on the warship in front of the far space fleet where the newly appointed colonel is. They used to joke about the future, and they imagined that if they both ended up as instructors of the Deep Space Aviation Administration heading towards the same designation, they'd compete to see whose student could fly better and faster. Now, DAA carries research data towards Earth while the far space fleet pushes deeper into unknown regions of the deep space tunnel. They pass each other and go their separate ways.